Creating a meaningful life might seem daunting, but it's not complex. It's simple and it's not easy, but it's not complex. I'm going to show you how to do this in this very short video, and then applying it might take years, right? But you can do this. I'm someone who's done it. I'm someone who's taught many people on how to do this, and you can do it yourself. It just takes practice, all right? So the first thing that we do is we create. So what does that mean? It first means that we decide that we are going to create the external life and the internal life that we want. Now, let me define those two pieces. The external life is really just a reflection of our internal state and our internal experience projected onto the outside world. Now, this takes a little bit of a leap of faith to believe this, and if you dive deep enough within yourself, you'll see that it's true. Everything that happens to us and for us in our life is an expression of things that are happening inside of us. So if we can shift who we are and how we are inside of ourselves, the circumstances in the outside world will shift as well. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is my experience of life. Not 100%, because there are still things that I see, actually perfect people, you could say, experience troublesome things in the outside world. But how they navigate them is like it's not even a problem, right? There might be a momentary blip of frustration or upset or whatever it is, but it doesn't let them get in their way at all. And in fact, it builds more meaning into their life. So what do we mean by creating the internal and the external? What this means is that we create or recreate our own personality. Now, again, most people think that their personality is rigid and it's just the way they are. Now, I have seen plenty of people change who they are and how they are, myself being the preeminent example, because I used to be kind of a D-bag and a terrible person and deeply insecure and all these different, many weaknesses, many weaknesses, far more weaknesses than I had in strengths. And through these years of coaching that I participated in, so much service that I participated in, I'm a monk. I've been a monk for 8 years, so I've done a lot of my own transformational work. I've created myself, and I would say am creating myself to be the best version of myself that I can be. And through doing that, I have molded my personality, not me, my personality to be the kind of personality that I want to have. I wanted to be confident. I wanted to be humble. I wanted to be more secure. I felt insecure almost my entire life. I wanted to be all these different ways in my life, and I am becoming them. And I've actually become many of them. One of the things I learned along the way actually is that the most secure person is the one who is the most familiar with their insecurities. And by doing that kind of a practice, we become less insecure and eventually secure because we have nothing really to hide, right? So that's one way that we create our internal world, right? And that's actually should be the focus. Unfortunately, most of us, I do this too, focus on the external world sometimes, right? And we think that if we change this circumstance or that circumstance, our boss, our partner, our car, our this or that everything will work out fine, but we haven't shifted who we are fundamentally. One great practice, become grateful for everything that happens to you in your life. It'll shift everything for you, and it will create external circumstances that will be the ones that you want instead of the ones that you don't want. So there's the simple stuff, which is like changing your job or changing where you live or shifting a relationship. And that's important in certain moments. Shifting your lifestyle, exercising more, eating better, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. But those things won't stick if we don't shift the personality inside. So the first step to creating a meaningful life is creating an internal world that's reflected in the external world that is by our design, which we can do. The second step is maintaining that. So, and we practice it, right? I was just at the park slacklining with a friend. Slacklining is where you tie this tight piece of rope essentially between two trees and you balance on it. It's like a tightrope, right? It's quite challenging. It's pretty hard. I'd done it many years ago as part of my climbing training. Got back into it because I was kind of bored one day and it was really fun. And so my buddy came out and he had just done it for like the first time and he kept falling off and he was so hard on himself. He's like, oh my God, oh geez. You know, I was like, it's okay. It's all right. And he's like, well, I want to see you fall a little bit. And of course I fell and I was like, do you feel better? And he's like, not really. So I kept practicing. I got a lot better pretty quickly because I had done it before. But this is the thing. We just practice this. Now, it's tricky because creating our internal world isn't as palpable as doing something like a silly activity that I was doing, slacklining, right? Walking on a tightrope, because you don't see or feel the consequences so quickly. And in some ways, it's more difficult to learn. But we can still practice it, right? Practice creating. So you might catch yourself getting really angry or resentful about somebody that they've done something to you a million times. And it's kind of like, okay, should I still be resentful if I know how they're going to treat me, right? Isn't this become my responsibility at a point? So just practicing the creation of the internal world and practicing the creation of the external world, right? I love going to yoga classes. It's one of my things. And one of the things that's very satisfying, it actually is the practice. Actually, it's not satisfying. What's satisfying, if I'm really honest, is the result. But what I practicing is when I'm in a pose, it's very challenging. I haven't gotten to the goal of the pose. And in yoga, they say that the goal of the pose is actually to accept oneself in the practice of the pose. One of the things that's satisfying is practicing what I'm teaching you right now, what I'm preaching, is being in the pose, practicing the calm, and actually being satisfied with not getting the result that I want. This is a key piece of life, is how do we become satisfied in the practice of goal achievement, right? And the second piece of this maintaining is persevering, emotional resilience. Gosh, if you can become emotionally resilient, everything will be yours. You could set a goal towards anything. And if you have the right strategy and are emotionally resilient enough, you can and will achieve it if you stick with it long enough, right? Every challenge that we have is not really a challenge, it's an opportunity to become more emotionally resilient. So if we can just keep practicing, maintaining, creating the internal world through the difficulties that we have and shifting our belief around it, seeing how this thing is happening to us and for us so that we can evolve and being grateful for it, and thus making changes in the external world, shifting different lifestyle patterns that we have, going to bed earlier for most of us and getting up earlier for most of us, eating better for most of us, exercising more for most of us, right? Spending time with ourselves, just practicing that over time, maintaining it, this will start to create meaning in your life. How? Because you'll feel more connected to yourself. And that's actually how you have meaning in your life, is being connected to yourself. It's not the end goal, because the end goal is actually providing service for others. Anyone who's created a super meaningful life has found that for themselves, is being in service to others. But getting connected to yourself is one absolute unavoidable step to creating a meaningful life. And here's the third piece, and this is the secret that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. Refuse. You need to start practicing refusal. And what I mean by that is refuse to do things to yourself and to do things to others and in your world that stop you from creating the meaning that you want in your life. Right? Stop the internal and external practices that inhibit the meaning that you wish to make. So meaning, if you're someone like I used to be, who would become very resentful very quickly to judge people, slow to understand, and I was, a therapist for many years, and so I had to learn that through that profession. If you're one of those people, stop doing that, right? Stop. Refuse to let yourself get resentful about the same kinds of things that happen to you every day. And if you refuse those things and practice the others, you will start to create meaning in your life. Again, all through getting more and more connected to yourself, right? So how do we really stop? How do we really refuse? Well, number one, we become aware of ourselves, become aware of how we're feeling, what kind of meaning that we're making from this experience or with this relationship. And then once we're aware of that, we choose, okay, I could be resentful at this person, or I could be fine, right? I could be fine. I could not let myself get so bothered or get bothered at all and start to make different choices with this person or in this situation. Because as soon as we become aware, we then get the opportunity to choose. We can't choose unless we're aware. And then eventually what will happen is you'll become aware, you'll choose. You'll become aware, oh, I'm resentful again, I'm choosing this. Oh, I'm resentful again, I'll choose this. And eventually over time, a beautiful moment happens in everyone's life. We become aware and we choose, and then all of a sudden we're like, you know what? Enough. And we decide. And this is where that refusal comes in, that energy of refusal. I refuse to continue this practice, this pattern, this habit, this way of being. So if you can create in your life, the internal and the external, maintain it, and then start refusing, you will absolutely create a meaningful life for yourself. Enjoy.